In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Peace be upon you and welcome to night 2 of the Truth Promoters Group Arbaeen 2025 program. Last night we reflected on the weight of trust and responsibility of the pulpit. Tonight we shift our focus to another danger when knowledge is severed from sincerity and learning becomes lifeless. Our Quranic anchors for this evening are found here. Chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of women, verse 58. Chapter 62, Surah al-Jumu'ah, the chapter of Friday, verse 5. Chapter 13, Surah al-Ra'd, the chapter of thunder, verse 11. Chapter 17, Surah al-Isra, the chapter of the night journey, verse 36. Chapter 24, Surah An-Nur, the chapter of light, verse 24, and Ziyarat Arbaeen. These verses remind us that knowledge alone does not purify. It must be carried, lived, and honored. To view the verses in full, with its visual presentation, please visit www.islamicdigest.org.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the especially merciful. Indeed, God commands you to deliver trusts to their rightful owners, and that when you judge between people, you judge with justice. Excellent indeed is what God advises you. Indeed, God is all-hearing, all-seeing. The likeness of those who were charged with the Torah, then failed to carry it, is that of a donkey carrying books. Evil is the likeness of the people who deny God's signs, and God does not guide the wrongdoing lot. Indeed, God does not change a people's lot unless they change what is in their own souls. And do not speak about that of which you have no knowledge. Indeed, hearing, sight, and the heart, all these are accountable. Today their tongues, their hands, and their feet will bear witness against them concerning what they used to do. He gave his blood for you to save your servants from ignorance and misguidance.
Welcome back. We now turn to tonight's poetic couplet, a reflection born from the verses you just encountered. This couplet is titled When Knowledge is Not Enough and is inspired by Surah al-Jumu'ah, the 62nd chapter of the Quran, the chapter of Friday, verse 5. These couplets are not mere words. They are an attempt to speak to the inner crisis of our age. To watch the full video and read the text, please visit www.islamicdigest.org.
What worth is knowledge if the soul stays blind? A library on a donkey, truth left behind. The ink without action will witness against, and learned silence becomes the tongue of the fenced. O God, exclude from your mercy the people who killed him and silence truth.
We now proceed to tonight's main lecture in the Tabyeen series, Part 12, When Knowledge is Not Enough, delivered by Shaykh Shabbir Hassanally. This session explores the spiritual and societal consequences of divorced knowledge, when information is abundant but action and integrity are absent. The full transcript with footnotes and source references is available at www.reflections313.com.
So I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, malik yawmiddin, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin, sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين. آمين يا رب العالمين. ما بعد. Peace be upon you, O son of the messenger of God. Peace be upon you, O son of the master of the successors. we bear witness that you are the trustee of God and the son of his trustee. You lived a blessed life, departed praiseworthy, and died a martyr, deprived and wronged. And we bear witness that God will fulfill what he promised you, and will destroy those who abandoned you, and punish those who killed you. And we bear witness that you fulfilled the covenant of God, and strove in his way until certainty came to you. So may God's mercy be away from those who killed you and wronged you, and may God's mercy be away from the people that heard of this and were pleased with it. O God, we make you our witness that we are friends to those who befriend you, and enemies to those who are hostile toward you. May our fathers and our mothers be sacrificed for you, O son of the messenger of God. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So this is the 12th in our series of sessions for the nights of Ashura, and now continuing in these blessed nights of Arbaeen on the subject of Tabyeen, or clarification. This is the second part of the second series on Tabyeen, and we'll be continuing this series during the remaining nights of Arbaeen, God willing. As with all of our other series and sessions, such as those on patience, the lantern of the path, or the art of supplication, it is strongly recommended that anyone consuming this, at the very least, review the previous session or sessions prior to consuming this one. This is because of the nature of the discussion, and the manner of discourse really does require that each part build upon the ones that came before. This is to make sure that we avoid any confusion, misunderstanding, and any invalid assumptions that can actually lead to what would be the antithesis of Tabyeen, or clarification. Now, while we do have a recap for each session, that recap is highly summarized. And therefore, to get the full nuance, the previous sessions will need to be consumed, studied, and reflected upon. Nevertheless, if I can get a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, we can move on with the recap.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عجيب.
So in our previous session, we crossed the threshold into the second half of this journey, moving from the foundations, principles, and dangers of Tabyeen, or clarification, into the realm of responsibility and embodiment. We turned our attention to one of the most sacred yet often misused stations in the Islamic tradition, the pulpit, or the minbar. We began by exploring what it truly means to speak from the minbar. It is not merely a platform of wood or stone, nor a matter of eloquence or theatrics. To ascend the platform is to carry a divine amana, a trust inherited from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, from the likes of Imam Ali, from Sayyid Zainab, from Sayyid Fatima al-Zahra, from the changed speech of Imam Sajjad. It is to speak on behalf of truth, to clarify what others distort, and to guide hearts back towards God. But as we saw, not all who climb the pulpit are its rightful heirs. We witnessed how the pulpit can become a stage where performance replaces sincerity and religion becomes spectacle. The prophetic minbar becomes what we call minbar as-su', an evil pulpit, when its bearer seeks applause over accountability, status over service, or self over sincerity. We reviewed the Qur'anic verses and hadith that issue stern warnings to those who conceal the truth after knowing it, to those who speak without knowledge, and to those who exploit religious symbols for worldly gain. These are not mere missteps. They are what we call khiyana, betrayals of the trust, and their consequences are spiritual ruin in this world and the next. We explored how scholars, teachers, speakers, and influencers must not only know, but live the truth, that piety, humility, and courage are the conditions for valid tabyeen, that eloquence alone is not enough, and that memorization without realization is a veil, not light. We looked at the devastating effects of false speech, and even worse, silent complicity, when a speaker fails to clarify what is necessary out of fear of reputation, or cowardice, they share in the crime of distortion. For in the eyes of God, to remain silent when truth demands speech, this is not wisdom. This is khiyana. This is betrayal. Yet the burden does not lie with the speaker alone. We examined how the audience too bears a responsibility, that the Ummah must learn to question respectfully, to verify sincerely, and to reject blind obedience. The Quran rebukes those who followed misguided leaders and later tried to blame them. The Imams have taught us, look at what is said, not who is saying it. And so we establish the criteria for discerning true scholars from pretenders. Not through robes or titles, but through evidence, humility, courage, and alignment with the Quran and the teachings of Ahl Bayt. Peace and blessings be upon them all. We then studied the model of correction, how to confront falsehood, not with aggression or ego, but with wisdom, hikmah, compassion, rahmah, and structured response. Using the framework of Imam Khamenei's methodology of Jihad al-Tabyeen, we saw how clarification can dismantle confusing thought through historical grounding, jurisprudential authority, spiritual resonance, and strategic empowerment of the community. We concluded by turning once more to the pulpit, not as an artifact of history, but as a battlefield of the present. The mimbar today stands either as a source of awakening or a source of misguidance. And we, as listeners, speakers, and inheritors of this faith, must decide, will we protect its sanctity, or will we allow it to be desecrated? Will we be among those who clarify or among those who conceal? With that weighty question, we ended the session with a supplication eulogy, a cry from the depths of our souls to God, to Sayyid Zainab, to Imam Sajjad, and to Imam al-Hujjah, may our souls be his ransom, begging that the pulpit of truth be restored, and that we not be counted among the silent. And now we ask another painful and urgent question. When knowledge is not enough, what remains? In this session, we explore the difference between possessing knowledge and being transformed by it. We examine the soul of the scholar, the heart of the preacher, and the reality of the believer who knows the truth, yet lives in contradiction to it. For if the pulpit is a trust and the tongue is a vessel, then the heart is the wellspring. And if the heart is corrupted, then even truth can become a tool of falsehood. Let us now turn to that inner battle. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the main session.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
When clarification has occurred, but change has not. So what happens when the truth has been clarified, the signs explained, and the verses echoed from every pulpit, but the soul remains unmoved? What happens when the reciter has memorized the Quran, the scholar quotes the traditions, and the speaker references the Imams, yet neither tears fall nor actions follow? This is not the ignorance of the unexposed. It is not the misguidance of the distant. It is the rot that grows within. It is the crisis of one who knows, but is not transformed. God warns of this spiritual hypocrisy, a state in which divine knowledge is separated from divine sincerity. In Surah al-Jumu'ah, the chapter of Friday, 62nd chapter of the Quran, verse 5. And this is interestingly a chapter the Muslims recite every single Friday in the Friday prayer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, the example of those who were entrusted with the Torah, but then failed to uphold it, is that of a donkey carrying books. This verse is not confined to a bygone people. It is a warning to every community whose scholars carry scripture on their tongues, but not in their hearts. It is a parable for every congregation that is impressed by eloquence, yet blind to the absence of sincerity. A people content to be moved, but not to move. It is not the lack of lectures, nor the scarcity of books. We have more knowledge today than many generations before us. Our shelves are full, but our spirits are empty. Our screens are filled with content, but our inner lives are dim. What then is missing? The answer is as brutal as it is simple. The heart is not in submission. The soul has not surrendered. The message has reached the ears, but it has not pierced the ego. Imam Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, when a scholar does not act upon his knowledge, his words slip off the hearts like rain slips off a stone. And like all of the hadith and Quran and everything that I cite within these sessions, all of the detailed citations and explanations are in the write-up, which I encourage everyone to take a look at. Knowledge without sincerity is not light. It is weight. It burdens the speaker. It drags the soul downward. It becomes a means of self-deception. And when such people rise to lead, when such knowledge is rewarded with praise, position, and platform, then the entire ummah begins to suffer from a type of religious fatigue. A fatigue born not from overexposure to truth, but from watching it recited by those who no longer feel its fire. In such an atmosphere, even the sincere become disheartened. The young begin to equate religiosity with performance. The oppressed lose trust in the scholars. The enemies of God rejoice because the guardians of religion have become predictable, safe, and silent. But this is not the path of Quran, nor is this the inheritance of Karbala. To be the people of Wilaya is to live in a state of alertness, where every ayah, every hadith, and every invocation is not a performance, but a piercing. The pulpit is not a platform, it is a burden, a trust, a place from which the soul of truth must be clarified with trembling and truthfulness. And so the question remains, if clarification has occurred, why has change not followed? And the answer, as we shall now see, lies not in the absence of speech, but in the betrayal of sincerity. Let's have a salawat and then we move on to the parable of the betrayer, knowledge without surrender.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So there is a figure in the Quran who stands as a divine warning to every scholar, every preacher, every speaker, every bearer of knowledge, and every community that celebrates them. He was a man of deep learning. He had access to the divine signs. He had knowledge of something we call Ism A'azam, God's greatest name. Whenever he raised his hands in supplication, his prayers were always answered, and yet he turned. His name was Bal'am ibn Ba'ura. God describes his descent in the most searing of images, and this is from Quran, Surah Al-A'raf, the chapter of the heights, 7th chapter of the Quran, verses 175 to 176. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, relate to them an account of him to whom we gave our signs, but he cast them off. Thereupon Satan pursued him, and he became one of the perverse. Had we wished, we would have surely raised him by their means, but he clung to the earth and followed his base desires. So his parable, and this is important, so his parable is that of a dog. If you make for it, if you go for it, it sticks out its tongue, it lolls its tongue. And if you leave it alone, it lolls out its tongue. Such is the parable of the people who deny our signs. So recount these narratives so that they may reflect. Imam Sadiq explained further, and this is from Tafsir al-Qummi. Again, the references, citations are all in the write-up. Imam Sadiq tells us, he, yani Bal'am, he knew the greatest name of God, and he would supplicate with it and be answered. But he inclined towards Pharaoh. When he did so, God stripped him of what he had been given. Therefore, God narrated his story in the Quran as a lesson for us. This parable is not ancient history. It is an ever-present danger that haunts those who claim sacred knowledge, but lack sacred sincerity. The signs were real, the knowledge was true, but the heart clung to power. The soul bowed to the world, and in that betrayal, Satan claimed his prey. Balaam did not misquote the verses. He did not distort the theology. He simply chose his comfort over conviction. And in doing so, he severed himself from the light. Today, how many like him sit comfortably upon the pulpits, reciting verses about sacrifice while avoiding every cost themselves? How many scholars once roared with courage, but now whisper with caution? How many speakers justify silence in the face of oppression, not because they are unaware, but because they are too aware of what truth will cost them? Again, Imam as-Sadiq says, when you see a scholar who loves the world, be suspicious of him regarding your religion. For whoever loves something guards what he loves. Also, Imam as-Sadiq again, whoever seeks knowledge to boast before the scholars or to argue with the ignorant or to turn people's faces towards him, let him prepare his seat in the fire. This betrayal is not just personal, it is societal. For when a community elevates a man who knows the truth but refuses to stand with it, they too inherit his fate. They learn to respect fluency without substance, charisma without courage, and scholarship without sincerity. And so the Quran speaks not only of the betrayer, but of the people who followed him. Verse number 176 of Surah Al-A'raf, chapter of the heights, 7th chapter of the Quran, the verse we cited just a little while ago. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that is the likeness of a people who denied our signs. This is how betrayal spreads, not only from the pulpit, but into the hearts of those who tolerate it. This is how the truth becomes hollow. This is how Karbala repeats itself, not with swords at first, but with silence. Please give me a salawat and let us look at the idea of carrying books without bearing the weight.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
So the Quran does not only warn the individual, it warns the community. The disease of knowledge without transformation is not confined to a single heart. It is contagious. When left unchecked, it reshapes the culture of the ummah. It redefines what is admired, what is tolerated, and what is excused. God presents a piercing image. This is from Surah al-Jumu'ah, the chapter of Friday, 62nd chapter of the Quran, verse number 5. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, the example of those who were entrusted with the Torah, but then failed to uphold it, is that of a donkey carrying books. It is not a matter of possession, but of transformation. The donkey does not know what it carries. The burden is sacred, but to the donkey, it's only weight. And so too are we warned. A people may carry scripture, they may memorize hadith, they may study philosophy and jurisprudence, yet fail to be humbled by it. They may quote the Quran fluently, but the Quran does not tremble in their souls. Their hearts are dry. Their tears are theatrical. Their pulse never rises when the name of God is spoken. This is not reverence. This is routine. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, how many are there who recite the Quran while the Quran curses them? To be a people of the Quran is not to cite its verses, but to be reshaped by its force, to tremble, to reform, and to rise. But when knowledge becomes a mere cultural artifact, something that increases status rather than sincerity, then the ummah becomes desensitized to its own hypocrisy. It does not matter what is said. It only matters who says it. A powerful name silences criticism. A famous face renders error invisible. This is not the love of Ahlul Bayt. This is not the madhab, the school of thought of those who stood in Karbala. This is how generations before us were led astray, not by ignorance alone, but by learned men who served the tyrants, men who wore turbans, but kissed the hand of Yazid, men who taught religion while emptying it of resistance. The people did not rise against them. They applauded them. They excused them. They deferred to their credentials. And so they too became donkeys, carrying the book, but not bearing its weight. Imam Sajjad has lamented this disease when he said, "When you see a scholar who loves this world, then doubt him in matters of your religion, for whoever loves something protects it." To protect our faith is to question our role in this sickness. Who are we applauding? Who do we platform? Whose words do we share and why? And more importantly, what are we doing with the knowledge we ourselves possess? Yet even today, in our own communities, not centuries ago, not in the distant lands, but amongst us, these warnings continue to echo with painful clarity. We have seen situations where individuals deemed pious and learned, who ascend the pulpit, quote the Maraja, and are followed by large audiences across the Shia diaspora, have acted not with divine certainty, but with worldly hesitation. During times of trial, when clarity was most needed, they faltered. There were cases, for example, during the recent global health crisis, where the legal rulings of our Maraja were very clear. The dead must be given their final rites, ghusl, kafan, and burial. The washing, the shrouding, and the burial, all with due dignity, using PPE or protective means as and when necessary. But some entrusted with this duty buried such believers without the ghusl, without the kafan, wrapping their bodies in hospital packaging, citing fears or excuses. They did not consult. They did not inform. They simply acted, and in doing so, denied the deceased their final right of return to God. When challenged, they doubled down, dismissing the concerns of the sincere, refusing to apologize, even mocking the faithful from the pulpit. Only when confronted directly with the rulings of the Maraja they claim to represent, did they relent. And even then, with reluctance, but without repentance. These are not simple mistakes. These are fundamental breaches of trust. The pulpit is not a private platform. It is a divine trust on behalf of the people. In other cases, religious centers, seen by many elderly and vulnerable believers as lifelines during times of despair, were closed to those unable to or unwilling to take medical intervention. No accommodation, no conversation, no compassion. Letters of concern were sent, not to provoke, but to understand, and were met not with reply, but with mockery from the pulpit itself. And yet, such individuals continue to be celebrated. They are applauded for their scholarship. They are still invited to speak. The more the faithful forget, the more the cycle repeats. Worse still are the hidden abuses, the ones shrouded in false piety and soft-spoken charm. Cases where men who appear righteous quote scripture fluently and present themselves as defenders of Islam are, behind closed doors, exploiters of the sacred trust they claim to protect. There are known instances where such individuals, under the guise of spiritual guidance, preyed upon young women during spiritual journeys, manipulating their trust, harming their dignity, and marking their lives with trauma that they may never fully recover from. In some cases, their rejection of these advances led to attempts to destroy their reputations, pushing some victims to the brink of despair and even suicide. There are also those who commercialize Ziyarat, presenting it as a selfless service while withholding deposits when plans fall through, keeping money that does not belong to them, only returning it under pressure and with secrecy. They use their reputation as a shield, assuming silence will protect them. But God sees, and the cries of the oppressed ascend, whether spoken or not. These are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a much wider crisis. The disconnect between knowledge and taqwa, between position and principle, between the sacred role and its lived reality. Now, none of this is said to destroy a person or a people. Rather, it is said to awaken a people. Because the longer we cover for such behavior, the more we teach the young that this is acceptable, that reputation excuses betrayal, that knowledge outweighs justice, that eloquence masks abuse. We will be asked. God will not judge us only by what we knew, but by what we tolerated. If our silence emboldened the corrupt, we are not innocent. The Quran does not say they carried the books. It says the example of those who were made to carry the Torah, but then did not carry it. Again, from Surah al-Jumu'ah. It is God who entrusts, and it is God who will ask how we carried what we were given. Ziyarat al-Yasin reminds the lovers of truth. I bear witness that whoever denies you is a disbeliever, whoever fights you is a polytheist, and whoever rejects you is in the lowest depth of hellfire. These are not words to parrot. They are signs to live by. Clarification has occurred. The verses have been recited. The blood of the martyrs has been spilt. If we remain unchanged, we will not be able to claim ignorance. And so now we must ask, how do we recognize this problem within ourselves? And what must be done to repair it? Please give me a salawat and we move to the first step towards redemption, which is recognizing the wound. But give me a loud salawat first.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
Now, there can be no healing without acknowledgement, no revival without reflection, and no return to God unless we first admit how far we have strayed. What we have seen in ourselves, in our communities, and in some of those who lead us is not merely a failure of etiquette or policy. It is a deeper fracture, a rupture between sacred knowledge and sacred responsibility. When knowledge no longer softens the heart, when leadership no longer safeguards the trust, when scholars begin to mirror tyrants, not in title, but in temperament, when the people excuse injustice because the face is familiar and the voice is eloquent, then the signs are clear. The disease has taken root. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, warned us centuries ago. He says, the beginning of strife is desire that is followed, and rulings that are innovated in opposition to the book of God. In such times, people will follow men, not the religion of God. This is our crisis. Not the lack of knowledge, but the severance between knowledge and divine accountability. It is not simply that some scholars have erred. It is that we, the Ummah, have stopped demanding accountability from those who wear the robes of religion. But this is not the end. The Quran does not present Balaam's fall or the donkey's burden or the scholar's hypocrisy merely to curse, but to warn, to awaken, and to call the people back towards their Lord. God does not close the door to redemption. On the contrary, He opens it. In Quran, Surah al-Zumar, the chapter of the thrones, 39th chapter of the Quran, verse number 53, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, say, O my servants who have transgressed against themselves, do not despair of the mercy of God. Indeed, God forgives all sins. Truly, He is the all-forgiving, the most merciful. The door remains open. even to the scholar who betrayed his trust, even to the leader who strayed, even to the silent one who watched it all happen. But that door can only be entered with sincerity. So let us begin together to walk the path of return. In the coming sections, we will present practical, actionable remedies for both the scholar who has lost his compass and the congregation who wishes to reclaim the dignity of their religion. The steps may be difficult, but the destination is light. As Ziyarat Arbaeen teaches us, he, Imam Husayn, shed his blood for you, for God, to rescue God's servants from ignorance and the confusion of misguidance. We too must bleed, not with swords, but with honesty, with humility, and with resolve, to rescue ourselves and our communities from the ignorance we have enabled. The time has come to clarify once more, not with words alone, but with action. So let us now look at the remedy for the scholar, realigning knowledge with God's trust. Not every scholar who goes astray is evil. Many are afraid. Some are confused. Others were simply never taught that the mimbar is not a reward for eloquence, but a burden of accountability before God. And yet, excuses cannot shield the soul from judgment. Imam Ali says, "Know that you are slaves of death, dwellers of annihilation. You are being exchanged from existence to non-existence, from health to illness, from affluence to poverty, from youth to old age, and from life to death. Beware, none of you will remain." If this is true for the ordinary man, then what of the one who ascends the pulpit in the name of the Prophet? The remedy for the scholar begins with 5 foundations, each one simple in speech, but heavy in action. So the first one is return to God with full honesty. Before any reform, there must be a form of ijtihad of the soul, a personal reckoning in the silence of the night. The scholar must stand before God and ask, have I delivered the message as it was given, or have I edited the truth to preserve my comfort? There is no pulpit here, no followers, no applause, only tears and truth. Second, rectify the wrongs, no matter how late. If errors have been made, and they have, then the first step is not justification. It is correction. If someone was buried without ghusl, acknowledge it. If someone was barred from a masjid unjustly, address it. If harm was done through the misuse of power, apologize publicly. Imam Ali says, he reminds us, beware, sins are like unruly horses on whom their riders have been mounted and their reins have been let loose. So they are carrying their riders and running with them, plunging them into hell. Surely the riders will be thrown off, and the burden of their sins will be cast on their backs. To repair is not humiliation. It is in fact salvation. The next point, cut the pathways to dunya. One of the main diseases is love of the world. Prestige, comfort, position, wealth. It creeps silently. It creeps in silently. The scholar must audit his life. What motivates my decisions? Whose approval do I seek? Imam Sadiq has said, when a scholar loves the world, he becomes corrupt. As we mentioned in part 10 of this series, the idea of hubb ad-dunya, love of the world, is an excessive attachment to this world. It is the illness of following base desires, as mentioned in Quran, Surah Maryam, the chapter of Saint Mary, the 19th chapter of Quran, verse number 59. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, then there succeeded them generations who neglected prayer and followed their desires, so they will meet with deviation. The issue is that desires do not always appear evil. They may come disguised as opportunities, stability, or even moderation, and even wisdom. However, they drag the soul away. They drag away from the soul the clarity once held. When afflicted with such an ailment, the truth, rather than becoming a beacon, becomes a burden. This corruption can become all-consuming. Cut off the roots of corruption before they bear fruit. The next point, commit to lifelong accountability. No scholar is above questioning. The Imam himself was asked, so who are we to be offended by feedback and questions? Hold open forums, respond to letters with respect, invite correction, and surround yourself not with admirers and sycophants, but with people who fear God enough to challenge you. As the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, has said, and this is quoted by Imam al-Baqir, the Prophet has said, religion is sincere counsel. And this is also echoed by Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha, where he says, there is no good in a religion in which there is no sincere counsel. Let the people advise you, not flatter you. Next, teach the people to think, not just obey. The scholar is not a master. He is a guide. His job is not to be followed blindly, but to awaken the intellect and the conscience of the people. Ziyarat Jami'ah reminds us, whoever obeys you has obeyed God, and whoever disobeys you has disobeyed God. Whoever loves you has loved God. This is the level of the infallible, of the ma'sumin. The rest of us must earn that trust, not demand it. Next, let the scholar weep before the people must. If the scholar reforms, if he acknowledges his faults and rebuilds trust through taqwa and truth, then the community will heal. If he does not, then God will raise others in his place. And this is a Qur'anic promise. As the Qur'an says in Surah Muhammad, the chapter of Prophet Muhammad, 47th chapter of the Qur'an, verse number 38, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, and if you turn away, he will replace you with another people, and they will not be like you. Let the scholar act before the scroll of life is sealed. Let him cry now, so that the people do not cry because of him on the day of reckoning. Please give me a salawat, and we now look at the remedy for the congregation and reclaiming the trust without rebellion.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So, the pulpit may belong to the speaker, but the message belongs to the ummah, to the community. The Quran does not say, ask the scholars and obey them blindly. Rather, it commands, ask the people of remembrance if you do not know. This is from Surah An-Nahl, the chapter of the bee, 16th chapter of the Quran, verse 43. Ask the people of remembrance if you do not know. There is a difference between asking with sincerity and surrendering one's soul. The scholar may speak, but it is up to the listener to verify, to reflect, and to ask, does this align with the Quran? Does this align with the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt? Does this align with the justice of God? Silence is not safety. Silence is in fact complicity. Next point. Reclaim the right to question. The congregation must understand it is not disrespectful to question. In fact, it is a divine duty. If something feels off, if a ruling lacks explanation, or if a speaker mocks genuine inquiry, then one must ask again. If the answer is still unclear, seek clarification from trusted sources, from other scholars, reliable and genuine ones, from the maraji', from the wali al-faqih. Even Prophet Ibrahim, peace and blessings be upon him, when asking God how he gives life to the dead, was not rebuked, but in fact was welcomed. In Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, second chapter of the Quran, verse number 260, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recounts, when Abraham said, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead," God said, "Have you not believed?" He replied, "Yes, but it is so my heart may be at ease." This is the model of sincere inquiry. A man of absolute faith, seeking clarity not to challenge, but to strengthen his heart. If even the friend of God could ask for reassurance, then who are we to be shamed into silence? Next, refuse to be intimidated by reputation. If someone is called Sayyid, or Shaykh, or Doctor, or Professor, or Ayatollah, or Allama, or Hujjatul Islam, or Maulana, or any title, it does not mean their actions are beyond scrutiny. We have seen too many communities crushed under the weight of personalities, where fear of social backlash or the shame of being labeled divisive causes them to tolerate injustice, to tolerate oppression, and indeed to even tolerate abuse. Remember the words of Imam al-Baqir, and this is a very important hadith. Whoever enters this affair of religion by way of the people will be exited from it by way of the people. But whoever enters it through God will be exited from it through God. Our allegiance is not to personalities. Our allegiance is not to personalities. It is to the principle of wilaya, to justice, to truth, to God. The next point is to create safe structures for accountability. Many communities have no mechanism for raising grievances. There's no ombudsman, no ethics council, no anonymous channels. And so when abuse occurs, it festers in whispers and trauma. The congregation must work to establish transparent governance for religious centers, anonymous feedback and reporting channels, clarity on decision-making processes, especially regarding money, trips, and speaker invitations, a consultative shura for pulpit access and community direction. This is not rebellion. This is in fact restoration. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, whoever is unjust to his subjects, finds it burdensome to communicate with them, closes the door of knowledge to them, and withholds justice from them, has indeed destroyed the foundation of authority and wasted the people. Let the people build systems that reflect the ethos of Imam Ali, not the ego of worldly leaders. The next point, support the reformers, not just the charismatics. Too often, those who speak softly but act justly are ignored, while those who captivate with theatrics are raised high. If someone works tirelessly to improve the community, even if they lack charisma, then support them. If someone speaks truth to power, even if they are quiet and unknown, then protect them. And if someone has hurt the people, even if they recite poetry beautifully and bring in countless donations, then their role must be reviewed. The Quran warns. These are very important warnings. The Quran warns in Surah Baqarah, second chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the cow, verse 204. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, among people is one whose speech impresses you in worldly life, and he calls God to witness what is in his heart. Yet he is the fiercest of adversaries. Let's also not forget that God says clearly in Quran, in Surah Al-Munafiqun, the chapter of the hypocrites, 63rd chapter of the Quran, verse number 4. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, when you see them, their bodies impress you, and if they speak, you listen to their speech. Yet they are like dry logs set reclining against a wall. They suppose every cry is directed against them. They are the enemy, so beware of them. May God destroy them. Where do they stray? Beauty of speech is not proof of beauty of heart. The next point, hold the pulpit, hold the minbar sacred, not entertaining. Many masajids, many masjids have become performance halls. Laughs are prized. Depth is mocked. Emotion is manipulated. The congregation must raise its standards, demand that the pulpit serve the mission of Imam Husayn, not the ego of the speaker. If someone consistently preaches myths, neglects Qur'anic verses, or avoids difficult truths, then it is the duty of the believers to write, speak, and seek change. Ziyarat Ashura reminds us, O God, make my life the life of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and my death the death of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. Let our centers of life and death, our manabir, our pulpits, our gathering places, reflect this dua. We do not call for division. We do not call for division. We call for clarification, for the tabyeen of the ummah to rise from within, both scholar and servant, speaker and listener, hand in hand. If we do not do this work, we betray our very future. Please give me a salawat, and we look at the idea of the inner revival, restoring taqwa and tawakkul in scholar and congregation alike.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
So behind every distortion in religion, whether by scholar or congregation, lies a spiritual fracture. It is not always ignorance. Often it is fear or attachment or a desperate clinging to the dunya disguised as piety. The root of all misguidance is not merely misjudgment. It is the absence of God consciousness or taqwa, and the absence of reliance on God or tawakkul. In this short section, this is the heart of the remedy. For even the best systems of accountability will collapse if the soul is hollow. So the first point, taqwa as the unseen God. Taqwa is not perfection. It is not external religiosity. It is the quiet fire within, the presence of God in every decision. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, described it as, taqwa is fearing, like a reverential fear, is fearing the majestic, acting upon the revelation, contentment with little, and preparing for the day of departure. Neither scholar nor layman can function properly without it. Without taqwa, knowledge becomes a tool of ego, and obedience becomes blind. If we desire reformation, we must first revive taqwa, God awareness, God consciousness in our homes, in our gatherings, and in our hearts. Second point, tawakkul, trusting the path of God even when it is costly. Many betray the truth, not because they're evil, but because they fear the consequences of speaking it. A loss of followers, social backlash, a loss of institutional funding, even threats to life. But tawakkul is the antidote. It is the refusal to compromise, because you trust that what is with God is better than what is lost in the world. In Quran, Surah Al-Talaq, the chapter of the divorce, 65th chapter of the Quran, verse number 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, whoever places their trust in God, He is sufficient for them. The scholar must speak, even if it costs him his platform. The congregant must question, even if it costs him his popularity. Tawakkul begins where comfort ends. The next point, reintroducing sincerity as the core metric. So we live in a time where numbers have replaced truth. Popularity has replaced piety. Presentation has replaced substance. And yet the Quran reminds us in Surah al-Hujurat, the chapter of the chambers, 49th chapter of the Quran, verse number 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, surely the most honored of you before God is the most God-aware or God-conscious of you. We must stop rewarding charisma and start recognizing sincerity. We must return to judging our leaders and ourselves by the standard of God's approval, not the applause of the crowd. Imam as-Sadiq has warned, beware of being deceived by a man who shows outward humility, excessive prayer and fasting, until you see how he restrains himself from the forbidden. The next point, reconnecting to dua and ziyarah as a means of spiritual refinement. True change is born in the night, not in meetings or lectures, but in whispered pleas to God. Let the scholar and the congregant alike return to the du'as of Ahlul Bayt. Du'as such as Du'a Abu Hamza, the cry of the broken. Du'a Kumail, the sword of guilt sharpened with hope. Ziyarat Ashura, the anthem of principled rejection and unwavering love. In Du'a Abu Hamza, we are taught, O God, make my heart intoxicated with your love, my tongue fluent in your remembrance, and my limbs occupied in your obedience. Imagine if every community chose just one dua to recite together every week, not merely as a ritual, but as a moment of shared reflection and understanding, not just in Arabic, but in a language the hearts can grasp. Let the words penetrate, let them cleanse, let them awaken. If this became our rhythm, our habit, the very soul of the ummah would begin to change. And it would certainly be a change for the better. The next point, accepting that revival begins with the self. It is easier to demand change from others than from ourselves. But the Quran makes it clear. In Surah Al-Ra'd, the chapter of the thunder, 13th chapter of the Quran, verse number 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, God does not change the condition of a people, and this is the important bit, until they change what is within themselves. So let each of us, speaker, listener, scholar, servant, take responsibility. Before demanding reform from others, let us purify our own niyyah, our own intention, our own tongues, and our own homes. This is not self-blame. This is shared responsibility. Please give me a salawat and we move to a final word, the pulpit, the people, and the promise of redemption.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farjah.
The mimbar was never meant to be a throne. It was never meant to be a spotlight, nor the means of income, nor a vehicle for fame. It was carved from the tears of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. It was raised on the blood of Imam Husayn. To ascend it is to carry a trust, one that will be asked about before God. But this is not a message of despair. It is a message of return. We do not call for scandal. We do not call for rebellion. We call for Tabyeen, the clarification, for truth to emerge from within, and for reform to rise from these very souls who had once faltered. Even the worst of misguidance can be overturned by a single moment of sincerity. First of all, to the speaker who has fallen short. And I'm now speaking to those speakers who feel they have fallen short. If you hear this and you feel exposed, do not harden your heart. You are not beyond redemption. The Quran speaks of one who was gifted divine signs, yet turned away, and likened him to a dog that pants whether chased or left alone. Surah Al-A'raf, the chapter of the heights, 7th chapter of the Quran, verses 175 to 176. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, relate to them an account of him to whom we gave our signs, but he cast them off. Thereupon Satan pursued him, and he became one of the perverse. Had we wished, we would have surely raised him by their means, but he clung to the earth and followed his base desires. So his parable is that of a dog. If you make for it, it lolls out its tongue. And if you let it alone, it lolls out its tongue. Such is the parable of the people who deny our signs. So recount these narratives so that they may reflect. But he is not beyond return, and neither are you. You can rise. You can apologize. You can seek forgiveness from the people and above all from God. You can reform. And in doing so, you will be greater than before. Did not Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, the commander who blocked the path of Imam Husayn, find his way back? In the Maqtal of Imam Husayn, Hur is quoted as saying, I was the first to stand against you, and now I desire to be the first to be martyred before you. And Imam Husayn embraced him. Now to the congregation that feels powerless. You are not weak. Your voice, your dua, your sincerity, it matters. You have the right, indeed you have the obligation to ask, to learn, to clarify, to seek justice. You are not here to clap and nod. You are here to uphold the legacy of Karbala. Said Zainab, peace and blessings be upon her, was not an orator trained in rhetoric. She was a believer filled with pain and clarity, and she shook the throne of Yazid. Let your presence, your refusal to be silent, your commitment to sincerity, let this be your Tabyeen. And finally, to us all, the awaited is watching. Imam al-Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom and may God hasten his return, is not absent because we lack scholars, but rather because we lack truthfulness. The world is not deprived of lectures. It is deprived of trustworthy hearts. The Quran warns us, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter of the cow, 2nd chapter of the Quran, verse 140. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, and who is more unjust than one who conceals a testimony they have from God? To remain silent when the truth is known is to wound the mission of our beloved Imam al-Hujjah, may our souls be his ransom. Let us truly prepare for him, not just with slogans, but with courage, with ethics, with accountability, and with hearts cleansed of fear and filled with love. And now let us look at the beauty of redemption. What is broken can be rebuilt. What was buried between years of ritual and routine can be unearthed with sincerity, with dua and action. The mimbar can once again become a minara of guidance. The community can once again become the extension of Karbala. The speaker, the scholar, can once again be a servant, and the congregation can once again be a force for truth. Let us meet our Imam, not as people confused and divided, but as a clarified ummah, whose hearts are upright and whose tongues are truthful. And let it be known, every drop of blood spilt on Ashura, every tear shed in Arbaeen, every line recited in Ziyarat, they were all calls to clarity. They were all calls to Tabyeen. Please give me a loud salawat and we move to the conclusion.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad.
So clarifying for the sake of God. In a world flooded with voices, with platforms, with personalities, we must return to the foundational truth. It is not knowledge alone that saves. It is sincerity, courage, and action. When clarification, tabyeen, is made, and yet the speaker persists in error, or the listener clings to passivity, the fault lies no longer in ignorance, but in the very soul. And yet this ummah is not lost, not while there is still breath to seek forgiveness, not while there are still hearts that tremble when they remember Karbala, not while the pulpit can still be reclaimed and the congregation can still rise with insight. The time has come for a new culture of accountability, not one rooted in anger or scandal, but in love for the truth and hope in reform. The mimbar belongs not to the loudest, but to the most God-conscious. And the path to the Imam is not lit by slogans, but by sincere hearts willing to be clarified, and indeed willing to clarify others. In the next session of this series, we will turn our gaze to the generation standing on the threshold of leadership, a generation hungry for meaning, drowning in contradiction, and yet full of potential. If the youth are not clarified, they will become either weapons in the hands of falsehood or victims of its betrayal. The question now is, who will guide them and who will stand between them and the edge? Please give me a loud salawat and we move to the supplication eulogy, which this evening is called The Cry Beneath the Pulpit.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد وعجل
آل
فرجهم.
محمد وعجل فرجهم.
In his name, the Lord of the martyrs and the truthful. O God, we are the people of Kufa, not by tongue, but by silence, not by sword, but by negligence, not by betrayal in the open, but by betrayal through inaction. We saw the distortion of the truth. We heard the twisting of your book. We witnessed the pulpit became a pedestal. And we said nothing. O God, O our God, the pulpit once shook with the voice of truth. It was the echo of Ali. It was the thunder of Zainab. It was the stand of Sajjad. But now it is soft with cowardice, heavy with fear, decorated with titles and salaries and microphones and lights, yet stripped of sincerity. Forgive us. Forgive us for watching righteous men turned away from the mosque. Forgive us for letting superstition replace the sunnah. Forgive us for closing our eyes when the corpse was buried without ghusl, and no one cried, and no one questioned, and no one trembled at the throne. O our Lord, you said in your book, and stop them, for they shall be questioned. Will you not ask us why then did we not speak? Why we allowed the trust to be broken? Why we let men climb the pulpit whose souls had no weight? O our Sayyida Zainab, did you not say to the people of Kufa, are you weeping now? May your tears never cease. Today, we too weep, but not for tragedy alone. We weep because we are part of the betrayal. We weep because we saw wrong and left it uncorrected. We weep because we feared the scholar more than God. Ya Sahib al-Zaman, O hidden one, O our Mahdi, we know you are watching. We know your heart bleeds every time the pulpit is misused. We know you remember your grandfather as the head of Husayn was raised on a spear, and yet we remain quiet as the truth is trampled under polished shoes. We are ashamed. My God, I have wronged my soul by how I've looked after it. Woe to it if you did not forgive it. Woe to it if you do not forgive it. Cleanse our souls. Cleanse our pulpits. Cleanse our teachers and our students and our gatherings. Do not leave us to ourselves. We call upon you with broken voices. We plead with you in the name of Zainab in Kufa, in the name of Sajjad in chains, in the name of Husayn in Karbala, and by the broken arms of Abbas. Surely I shall lament you morning and evening, and I shall weep for you in place of tears' blood. O Imam of our time, return. But do not return to find us as enemies. Return to a people purified by Tabyeen, a people ready to speak, to listen, to obey God over ego, a people no longer drunk on reputation and fear, a people who have remembered Zainab's cry and turned it into a whisper beneath the throne. وآخر دعواني عن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
We now turn to the Maqtal, the account of the suffering and steadfastness of the Prophet's family, peace and blessings be upon him and his family. A Maqtal is not a story, it is a wound preserved through words, a chronicle of betrayal, blood, and divine love. Tonight's reading is Arbaeen Maqtal Part 2, The Journey from Karbala to Kufa by Brother Hassanally, Dewji. You can read the full text at www.themartyr.net.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. The sun had barely set on the blood-soaked plains of Karbala when the family of Imam Husayn alayhi salam was forced to begin a journey that would etch itself into the soul of history. The air was heavy with grief, the silence broken only by the cries of children and the wails of the bereaved. The body of Imam Husayn, the beloved grandson of the Prophet, laid unburied on the scorching sands, his blood mingling with the dust, his noble head severed, his companions fallen around him. The women and children, their hearts shattered, were herded together, their tents looted and set ablaze, their dignity trampled by the soldiers of Yazid. As the captives were driven from Karbala towards Kufa, every step was a torment. The chains that bound the noble family were not just of iron, but of sorrow and loss. The children, parched and exhausted, stumbled through the desert, their eyes searching for the faces of fathers and brothers who would never return. Lady Zainab Salamullahi alayhi, the sister of Imam Husayn, became their pillar, her courage unbroken, her faith unwavering, even as she bore the weight of unimaginable tragedy. As the battered caravan of Prophet's family approached the gates of Kufa, Sayyidah Zainab's heart was a storm of grief and memory. The city walls, once familiar, now loomed with shadows of betrayal. Every stone, every street, every echo in the air reminded her of a time when Kufa had been a place of hope, a place where her father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, had walked with dignity and justice. She remembered the days when her father would ascend the pulpit in the Grand Mosque of Kufa, his voice resonant with wisdom and compassion. "Ask me before you lose me," he would call out to the people, offering the treasures of divine knowledge. Yet instead of seeking guidance, many would mock him, asking frivolous questions. "How many hairs does my son have on his head?" Turning away from the light he offered. She remembered how in his loneliness, her father would pour his heart into the depths of a well, his words swallowed by the silence of indifference. Now as she entered Kufa, her eyes fell upon the same pulpit. no longer a seat of justice, but now defiled by the presence of Ibn Marjana, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the tyrant who had ordered the slaughter of her brother and kin. The memory of her father's pain returned with fresh agony. How the people of Kufa had turned against him at Siffin, forcing him into arbitration, opening the door for Muawiyah's treachery and usurpation of the Khilafat. She remembered the night of the 19th of Ramadan, when her father was struck by the poisoned sword of Ibn Muljim as he bowed in prayer. She could see him lying on his deathbed, the poison coursing through his body, his face radiant with patience and faith, until he finally attained martyrdom. Her thoughts turned to her brother Imam Hassan alayhi salam, whose loneliness in Kufa was a wound that never healed. She remembered how he was attacked during his prayers, how his own companions abandoned him, forcing him to accept a treaty with Muawiyah and to relinquish the Khilafat for the sake of the Ummah's unity. How the Ummah would mock and slander him, yet in spite of all of this, he would display profound wisdom and patience. He too would be martyred through treachery and betrayal, his own wife being the one to administer the poison, destroying his liver and causing him to have an excruciating and painful death. She remembers how he vomited his own liver before eventually returning to his Lord. The women of the Prophet's household, who had always been shielded by the veils of honor and respect, were now paraded through the streets unveiled, their heads uncovered before the eyes of the crowd. The people of Kufa, struck by the sight of the Prophet's family in such a state, wept and lamented. Some covered their faces in shame, others lowered their heads, unable to bear the sight of the daughters of Fatima and Ali exposed to public gaze. And now the faces in the crowd. These were the same people who had written letters to her brother Husayn, inviting him to Kufa, promising loyalty and support. She remembered the hope in Husayn's eyes as he sent their cousin, Muslim ibn Aqil, to Kufa. But hope turned to heartbreak as news reached them. Muslim too was betrayed and abandoned, left to wander the streets alone, seeking shelter before being captured and killed by Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. His body was dragged through these very streets, the same streets that now watched the Prophet's daughters paraded in chains. In the midst of this anguish, the voices of Ahlul Bayt rose, each a beacon of truth and defiance. Lady Zainab, her face veiled as much as she could manage, her voice steady, rose to address the people. Her words cut through the crowd like a blade. Lady Zainab's heart burned with righteous anger and sorrow. Her voice, though weary, thundered with the weight of history and truth. She vented her pain in a sermon that would echo through the ages. O people of Kufa, O people of deception and betrayal, do you weep? Woe upon you! You are like the woman who spins her yarn, only to then break it into pieces. You pledge loyalty only to betray. You call with your tongues, but your hearts are empty. You have destroyed yourselves by your own hands and lost your own future. You invited my brother with your letters and then turned your swords against him. You abandoned the son of the Prophet, and now you weep for him? May your tears never dry. You killed the son of the Prophet, and now you cry for him? Your betrayal is written in the heavens and the earth. You have prepared an evil provision for your afterlife, for you have slain the support of the time, the son of the seal of the prophets, the master of the youth of paradise. Her sermon silenced the crowd, their shame laid bare by her truth. Even the hearts of the hardest men trembled at her eloquence and the depth of her pain. Her words fell upon the crowd like a storm, exposing their shame, their cowardice, and their broken promises. In that moment, Sayyidah Zainab was not just a grieving sister, she was the voice of truth, the inheritor of her father's courage, the conscience of a nation lost to its own treachery. As Lady Zainab's voice rang out in the heart of Kufa, her words were not confined to the people gathered before her. Her sermon was a message for all humanity, for every age and every heart that might one day stand at a crossroads between loyalty and betrayal, between truth and convenience. Her warning was not just for those who had written letters to Imam Husayn and then turned their backs. It was for all who with their tongues professed the love and allegiance to the truth, but whose actions falter when sacrifice is required. Her words echo through the centuries, reaching every soul that claims to await the Savior, the Imam of their time. She seemed to say, beware lest you become like the people of Kufa, those who invited the Imam with promises and oaths, but when the test came, abandoned him to stand alone. God forbid that we too should call upon the Imam of our age, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajalullahu Ta'ala Farajul Sharif, with our words, yet betray him with our deeds, our indifference, or our fear. The tragedy of Karbala is not just a story of the past, it is a living lesson, a call to sincerity, courage, and unwavering loyalty. Lady Zainab's sermon is a mirror held up to every heart. It asks, when the time comes, will you stand with the truth no matter the cost? Or will you, like the people of Kufa, spin the yarn of promises only to break it when it matters most? Her pain, her anger, and her hope are a legacy for all who await justice. May we heed her words, and may we never be among those who betray the trust of the Imam of our time. Lady Kulthum, her voice trembling yet resolute, also addressed the people of Kufa. She reminded them of their broken promises, their letters and pleas that had summoned Imam Husayn to their city, only to betray him at the hour of need. Her words were a lament and a rebuke, awakening the conscience of those who listened. Fatima Sughra, the young daughter of Imam Husayn, though frail and grief-stricken, spoke with a wisdom beyond her years. She described the suffering of the children, the thirst, the terror, and the loss. Her innocent voice pierced the hearts of the listeners, making them weep for the pain they had caused. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, though weakened by illness and chains, stood before the people and delivered a sermon that shook the very foundations of Kufa. He introduced himself as the son of Husayn, the grandson of Ali and Fatima, and the great-grandson of the Prophet. He spoke of the injustice and cruelty inflicted upon his family and called the people to reflect on their actions and seek forgiveness from Allah. Then, in the court of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the cruelty of the oppressors reached its peak. The severed head of Imam Husayn alayhi salam was brought forth on a tray, placed before the tyrant and the assembled court. In a moment that seared itself into the memory of all present, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, with callous arrogance, struck the sacred lips and teeth of Imam Husayn with his cane, mocking and belittling the grandson of the Prophet. The family of Imam Husayn, bound and exhausted, were forced to witness this desecration, their hearts breaking anew. At that moment, an old man in the court, his eyes brimming with tears, could bear it no longer. He cried out, his voice trembling with grief and outrage, "Woe to you, O Ibn Ziyad! I have seen these very lips kissed by the Messenger of Allah. How dare you strike them?" His words hung in the air, a testimony to the sanctity of Imam Husayn and the cruelty of his enemies. Lady Zainab, her eyes blazing with righteous indignation, stood tall and unbowed. When the tyrant taunted her, asking how she saw what Allah had done to her family, she replied with words that would echo through eternity, "I saw nothing but beauty." In the face of cruelty, she saw only the fulfillment of divine will and the sacrifice that would awaken the conscience of the world. The words of Lady Zainab Salamullah alayh fell upon Kufa like a thunder, shaking the very foundations of the city. Her voice, steady and unyielding, exposed the truth of the tragedy and the guilty of its perpetrators. The people of Kufa, who had gathered to witness the humiliation of the Prophet's family, found themselves instead confronted by their own shame and complicity. Many wept openly, their hearts pierced by her eloquence and the weight of her grief. But it was not only the people who were moved. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the governor who had orchestrated the massacre and now sat in arrogant authority, felt the force of Lady Zainab's words like a blow. He had expected broken captives, silenced by loss and humiliation. Instead, he was faced with a woman whose dignity and defiance could not be chained, whose words stirred the conscience of the city and threatened to ignite its spirit. As the murmurs of unrest began to ripple through Kufa, Ubaydullah grew uneasy. He saw the tears in the eyes of the people, the shame on their faces, and he feared that the truth spoken by Zainab might awaken them to rebellion. The memory of her father Amir al-Mu'mineen still lingered in the city, the echo of justice and the love the people once bore him could not be erased so easily. Fearing that the presence of Ahlul Bayt in Kufa would become a rallying point for the oppressed, and that Lady Zainab's words might spark an uprising against his rule, Ubaydullah made a swift and cruel decision. He ordered that the captives be sent immediately to Damascus, to the court of Yazid. He hoped that by removing them from Kufa, he could silence their voices and extinguish the flame of resistance that Zainab had kindled. Yet even as the caravan was forced to march once more, this time towards the distant and hostile land of Damascus, the words of Lady Zainab lingered in the air, a seed of truth and courage planted in the hearts of all who heard her. Ubaydullah could send the captives away, but he could not erase the memory of her defiance, nor the power of her sermon, which would echo through history as a testament to the unbreakable spirit of the Prophet's family. For 3 days, the bodies of Imam Husayn and his companions remained unburied, exposed to the burning sun and the trampling hooves of enemy horses. The heavens wept, and the earth mourned. At last, the noble tribe of Bani Asad, moved by the tragedy, came to Karbala, but the bodies were unrecognizable and they did not know where to bury each martyr. It was with Allah's permission that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam returned to the battlefield. With tears streaming down his face, he identified each body, his father, his uncles, his brothers, his companions, and guided the Bani Asad to their graves. With trembling hands and broken hearts, they laid Imam Husayn to rest where he fell, his grave a beacon for all who seek justice and truth. And in every moment of this tragedy, in every cry of pain and every act of betrayal, there was a witness whose heart bled with the family of Husayn, the awaited Imam al-Mahdi, Ajarallahu ta'ala farajuh sharif. He is the inheritor of this sorrow, the one who will one day rise to avenge the blood of Karbala, to fulfill the promise of justice. The betrayal of the Kufans, the suffering of Ahlul Bayt, and the tears of the oppressed are all inscribed in his heart. He is the living testament to that the sacrifice of Imam Husayn will never be forgotten, and that the day will come when truth will triumph over falsehood. Thus ended the journey from Karbala to Kufa, a journey of suffering, but also of unyielding faith and immortal courage. Now that the greater journey lie ahead, the legacy of Imam Husayn and his family would live on, their sacrifice a light that would never be extinguished, and their story a call to justice that would echo until the day of reappearance. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٌ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
We now come to the Nohe, the lamentation that lets the heart weep when the tongues cannot. Tonight's Nohe is titled, Now He's Gone, and continues our tradition of sacred mourning in rhythm and reverence. To revisit this and other Nohes, please visit www.shiasounds.com.
So the dust now has settled, all they've burned now is leveled, in their sin they have reveled, broken hearts now assembled, through the mist flags are flying, upon the wind gentle crying, blinded eyes testifying, deadened souls now reviving. Oh, they call out your name, now he's gone, Ya Husayn, Ya Husayn. Oh, they call out your name, all alone on that plain. Never life will be the same. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn, Ya Husayn. From his youth, how he guided, drew them close, the ones divided. In his heart, love abided, midst his loved ones resided. Oh, a world of pain and sorrows. He paved the path of sure tomorrows through isolation and horrors to pure Islam, the restorer. Oh, they call out your name, all alone on that plain. Never life will be the same. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn. Ya Husayn. Oh, they call out your name. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn, Ya Husayn. Oh, such a witness to murders. Holy loved ones were martyred. Only a remnant of defenders for the flag of no surrender. By his side against deceivers, against evil plots and lie weavers, hypocrites and false teachers. Oh, they call out your name. Mighty oaths they were sworn there, a righteous burden was born there, a holy voice raised in sweet prayer, a voice that eased all our despair, a tongue professing pure Tabyeen, no innovation or false deen, battle cry of our Husayn, bore the dust and the blood stains. Oh, they call out your name. Same. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn. Not a sound, just desolation. A single man, a whole nation, and yet a cry of liberation. For the oppressed in starvation, a banner raised by the lovers, by those in chains sisters and brothers, though torn apart, how they discovered a deadly vow they uncovered. If I should die and be scattered, and then restored and killed and shattered 1,000 times, then no matter. I stand by you at Karbala. No, they call out your name, all alone on that plain. Never life will be the same. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn, Ya Husayn. Not a sound, just desolation. A single man, a whole nation, and yet a cry of liberation for the oppressed in starvation. A banner raised by the lovers, by those in chains, sisters and brothers, though torn apart, how they discovered a deadly vow they uncovered. If I should die and be scattered, and then restored and killed and shattered 1,000 times, then no matter. We stand by you at Karbala. Oh, they call out your name, all alone on that plain. Never life will be the same. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn, Ya Husayn. Oh, they call out your name. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn. Oh, they call out your name, all alone on that plain. Never life will be the same. Now he's gone, Ya Husayn. Now he's gone, Ya
We now enter the communion of Arbaeen, a poetic interpretive rendering of Ziyarat Arbaeen in English. Created by the Truth Promoters Group, this is a world first, aiming to transmit the message, emotion, and allegiance of the Ziyarah in a form that speaks to the soul. You can experience the communion again at www.shiasounds.com.
Peace be upon the friend of God, thrown not into fire by idol worshippers, but into silence by a nation who claimed to pray. Peace be upon the beloved, whose love was betrayed by those who lifted hands in prayer, yet turned their backs on the very soul of Tawheed. Peace be upon the purified, son of the pure, light of Zahra's sorrow and Ali's soul, whose blood was spilt by hands that moved in prayer, but never trembled at the thought of God. Peace be upon the son of the purified, the fruit of Zahra's broken ribs, the soul of the Prophet's prayer. Peace be upon the child of light, who stood like Ibrahim amidst the idols, yet found no miracle to cool the flames, only the silence of a nation that once wept at his birth. Peace be upon the one who was seen not by tyrant but by his mother, as each arrow stole a breath, and each scream of a thirsty child tore the veil between Karbala and the unseen. And woe to the scholars of memorized Qur'ans whose hands forgot its meaning. Woe to the men who bartered eternity for a kingdom they never received. O people of prayer, where was your love when the head of Husayn was raised on a spear? Peace be upon the oppressed martyr, whose crime was truth, whose sentence was silence, whose judge was the Ummah that once kissed his lips. Saint Mary wept beneath a cross for a son who was made to appear slain. Sayyida Zahra wept from the unseen for a son who truly was. One was spared by divine will, one was trampled by a nation of veiled hearts. You loved them, you guided them, you forgave them, and they answered with swords. And now I tremble, not at your oppressors, but at the mirror of my own delay. Am I one who mourns, or one who moves? Do I raise your banner, or let it fall to keep the approval of pharaohs in suits? My arm weakens, but my heart screams. I will not betray you, O Shaheed. I will not greet your name with tears and meet your cause with excuses. I bear witness that you established the prayer not only with limbs, but with love. That you built its sanctuary not in stone, but in the soul, and taught hearts how to kneel, even as swords circle your throat. You gave to the beggar, the orphan, the fugitive, not from excess, but from hunger, and said, we desire no reward, only the face of God. You taught what was right, warned against what destroys, and obeyed not your soul, but the one who shaped it. Until the end, until the certainty, until the head fell and still the tongue moved. And I say these words with trembling lips, drowning in sins, ashamed to be heard by you. Yet I see a hand, not of blame, but of love. The hand of your Son, the hand of the awaited. And I hear a voice that says, rise, repent, return. The prayer must still be established, the sword must still be sheathed in justice, the banner must still be raised. Be not afraid, for the sons of Mary and Husayn will walk again, and they will ask, were you with us or with them? He gave his blood, not for land, not for throne, but to pull us from the quicksand of ignorance and the wasteland of misguidance. He offered the child, the son, the brother, each drop of love poured out to cleanse our hearts of arrogance and blindness. And I wallow in self-love, draped in the filth of excuses, while his hand still reaches out from the unseen. Come, he whispers, you are not beyond salvation. I weep for the mothers who hide their poverty in shame, while pulpits demand payment to speak in his name. I rage against the sellers of salvation, who make merchandise of mercy, who drug the people with dead words, while the children of Gaza die unnamed. O son of Zahra, you sought not to rule, but to lift the veils from the eyes of men. You died to raise a people who would carry truth like fire in their palms. And I swear by the blood on the sand, by the tears of your sister, by the cry of your son, I will not sleep, I will not sell, I will not surrender. Until we complete your mission or die upon its path. Among them are those who fulfilled their vow, and among them are those who await. Yet they did not change in the least. They tore your limbs, not in the heat of war, but in the coldness of injustice. The sword did not tremble, the hands did not flinch, the hearts did not feel. Like Jesus, like Yahya, like the prophets they beheaded, they butchered you, not because you failed, but because you would not bow. And the severing continues in bombs dropped on nurseries, in clinics turned into crematoriums, in wombs where life is declared inconvenient, in nursing homes turned into graveyards by the children they raised. Oh, Husayn, I see your body in every corpse crushed beneath progress. I see your ribs in every soul broken by betrayal. I see your blood in every sin I commit, while wearing your name on my lips. But I also hear a voice, not of shame, but of invitation. If your limbs are torn by sin, bind them with repentance. If your heart is fractured, let it beat again for truth. The Mahdi calls, the rope of God still hangs. The door is still open, and though I am unworthy, I will walk through it, because this is the way. This is the way. He was killed by those who Islam had raised, not by strangers, but by the memorizers of the Qur'an, not by idol worshippers, but by those who bowed without bowing within. And we, not only for Husayn, but for the terrifying truth that I could be one of them. I speak of Tabyeen, but do I clarify for myself? Or do I cover truth with commentary and call my betrayals scholarship? I look in the mirror and I see Umar ibn Sa'ad whispering, Ray is worth it. I fall to my knees, unable to stand before Zahra, with the blood of a child on my hands. But then, a voice, a flag, a cry from the distance. I see the sun rising in the west. I see Sajjad upright in chains. I see Zainab undefeated in sorrow. And I see him, I see him, I see him, the son of Husayn, my master, the ache in my soul, the Yusuf of Zahra. And I cry, do not let me fall. If they beat me, strengthen me. If they tempt me, blind me. If I forget, remind me. O Lord, train me in love, crucify my ego, and make me roar against injustice, so that the name, your name, and your name alone is always the Most High. I bear witness not with tongue alone, but with this trembling soul, that I am with you in peace and in war, in silence and in storm, in public and in secret. Though my hands have strayed, though my eyes have wandered, though I have failed you more times than I dare to count, still I say, I am with you. And if my hands betray you, I will sever them. If my eyes deceive you, I will blind them. All I want is a glance, one glance from the Yusuf of Zahra, one glance from the Mahdi in occultation, one glance from the heart of the Prophet that will say, you are not forgotten. My wealth is yours, my family is yours, my blood, my breath, my voice, my everything is yours. If they strike your wali, let me be the shield. If they curse him, let me be the tongue that answers. If they aim arrows at his chest, let me be the one who stands and takes them, until there is nothing left but dust. And if I must be torn, cut, burned, and torn again 1,000,000 times over, I will not flinch. Because to stand with Sayyid Ali is to stand with you. To defend your representative is to kiss the feet of your grandfather. And to stand with your blood is to stand with God. This is my covenant, my allegiance, my vow. If I break it, O God, cast me from your mercy. For what good is paradise without the smile of Husayn? With you, never with your enemy. No matter how far I fall, no matter how dark the night, I will never stand with those who profit from your wounds and wear your name like a mask. I want nothing from them. No alliances, no truce, no tolerance. How can I share breath with those who sell your blood for silver soaked in children's screams? How can I ever trust the ones who betrayed Husayn, not to betray the Mahdi? I will fight them expose them, pray that God casts them from the shade of his mercy until they awaken or perish. They speak of heaven and buy homes with crocodile tears. But how will they pass the gate when Ali stands there with a sword and a book of names? I am not with them, not with the tyrants, not with the bankers who enslave, not with the politicians who kneel to capital, not with the scholars who have forgotten how to weep. If they cut me, burn me, tear me to pieces 1,000,000 times, I will not relent. My allegiance is eternal in this world and the next. And if I must fall into hell for my sins, even from its depths, I will cry, where are you, O hope of the believers? O Lord of Husayn, if I am to live, let it be for truth. If I am to die, let it be for loyalty. Take me before I betray the ones I love, before I shame the eyes of Zahra. All that I have and all that I am, I place at your feet. My soul is yours, my heart is yours, my body is yours, my strength, my weakness, my voice, my silence, my hands, my feet, my opinions, my desires, even my shame, all yours. I come with nothing, I come as dust, I come as sin upon sin, tremble upon tremble, still hoping you will not cast me away. For though I am broken, I am yours. I am oppressed by my own crime, but I rise as an enemy to the oppressor. And I swear, if you know that I am false, then destroy me, burn me, scatter me into fire. But if you know my love is true, then make me worthy. Shield me from myself, guide me from their plots, and let me serve, even if only to sweep the earth where the Mahdi walks. Let me be one whose breath brings joy to Zahra. Let me be one whose whisper does not shame Ali. Let me be one whose love makes Husayn smile, even once. Oh my Lord, I am yours, I am theirs. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. I saw nothing but beauty, said Zainab in chains, while I crumble at the weight of smaller griefs. Teach me to see as she saw, to love as she loved, to rise as she rose, undefeated, unveiled, unafraid. I see Sajjad greeting his father's severed head with peace, whispering the verse of the cave, reminding us that the sleepers will wake and Mahdi shall rise. And I see the abused mother of the Mahdi, insulted like Maryam, her rights stolen, her dignity shattered, her pain buried in our silence. They said they loved the Prophet while tearing apart his daughter. They said they worshipped God while slaughtering his light. And still, today, the child killers of Gaza are blessed by the priests of empire, the murderers of Hind Rajab are praised by politicians who smile through genocide. But we have not forgotten. The graves of the martyrs whisper. The tears of children echo in the Arbaeen march. And the Mahdi hears every cry. Divine love is not poetry. It is protest. It is protection. It is standing in front of the bullet and daring it to pass. I see the people of Bahrain, of Yemen, of Nigeria, of Lebanon, of Syria, of the broken homes and broken hearts. And I scream, where is the justice you promised, O Lord of Husayn? I remember the Risalat al-Huquq, the Charter of Rights that Sajjad gave the world. And I vow, I will not forget the right of the poor. I will not forget the right of the prisoner. I will not forget the right of the child. If Mahdi is delayed because of me, then let me be reshaped, burned, broken, reformed, but not left behind. Let me be the soil beneath his feet. Let me shield him like the lovers of Karbala shielded Husayn during prayer. And in his absence, let me never doubt his flag bearer. Let me serve the Wali al-Faqih with such loyalty that my hands move before his voice finishes the sentence. If I cannot follow the one who represents him, how can I claim to follow him? Let me die before I betray the trust. Kill me, O Lord, before I become a wound in the heart of Mahdi. I have come broken and sinful to this grave of fire and fragrance. I do not bring perfection. I bring longing. I bring wounds. I bring the ache that would not let me sleep. I bring a promise sealed in pain, carved in tears, that I will not betray you, O Husayn. This world did not deserve you, and I have not yet made myself worthy of your dust. But still I crawl to you from behind veils of shame and whisper. Will you accept me? I am not from the 72. I am not from the pure. I am not from the brave. But I am from the broken. And the broken have always belonged to you. Let me weep at your grave until my heart becomes clean. Let me whisper your name until my soul remembers who it was. Let me walk in your shadow until the sun of Mahdi rises and burns away the night. And if I die before that dawn, bury me near your lovers. Mark my grave with no name. Just write upon it, this one tried. O my Lord, O Rahman, O Rahim, accept this whisper. Accept this march. Accept this communion. For you alone are the goal, and you alone remain. And from him alone is all ability, and he has authority over all things.
As this night of remembrance comes to a close, we recall the words of Imam al-Mahdi. May our souls be his ransom, and may God hasten his return. I bear witness that you are light in lofty loins and pure wombs. Ziyarat Nahya. O Husayn, your light was not meant to be buried. It lives on in every tear, in every stand, in every soul that dares to clarify. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tomorrow, we continue with Night 3 titled Youth at the Edge of Tomorrow, a vital reflection on the role of youth in the movement of truth. Until then, may Allah guard your hearts, bless your steps, and write your name amongst the companions of Wilayah. Peace be upon you, and peace be upon Husayn.